Are you someone who listens to this weekly podcast because you got out of the military with big dreams? Are you listening to this because you're committed to figuring out how to execute on them? Today's show with Chaunte Hall will equip you with the 3 pillars you need to be equipped with to begin figuring out who you are after the military rank, uniform, and title comes off, so you can live proactively versus reactive as you grow and advance inside the new trenches we call the civilian world.
Step up and say, you know what? It's okay that this is how I'm viewed. Now, what am I going to do to rise above those factors? How am I portraying myself? Why is it that they think that? What does my academia match my future career path desires?
Today's show is brought to you by Brute Force Sandbags. Are you ready, ambitious vet, to upgrade your home training? Check out Brute Force Sandbags' brand new garage and home gym bundles by clicking the link in the show notes below. Brute Force Sandbags are 100% American-made sandbags, gear, and much more. Train accordingly and dress accordingly by checking out the link in the show notes below. We'll see you there. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet Podcast. My name is Chris. I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran turned social entrepreneur. Here I dive into the trenches with today's most ambitious, goal-oriented, and growth-minded military veterans on the planet to empower you with the golden grenades needed to break through new levels of satisfaction, fulfillment, and success after stability is no longer a challenge to overcome. Buckle up, ambitious vet. It's time to grow and advance in your life.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life's fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, ambitious vet? We're right back inside the trenches today with Chaunte Hall. Chaunte is no stranger to understanding the military culture. Growing up as an Air Force dependent in a family steeped in military tradition, it is easy to understand her drive, determination, and unyielding passion for serving the military and the military affiliate community. As a U.S. Air Force OIF and OEF veteran, Chaunte has a deeply rich perspective regarding the trials and tribulations associated with multiple long-term deployments and can attest all too well to the sacrifices connected to steadfastly keeping such commitments. Having honorably served as an active duty as well as reserve capacity, Ms. Hall brings a realistic perspective and understanding with respect to addressing the functional challenges related to you successfully transitioning from the military to civilian life. Ms. Hall believes that being self-aware and understanding one's positionality in regard to 3 core pillars: educational attainment, financial literacy, and vocational proficiency will enable one to have holistic health, well-being, and resiliency. Since 2011, Ms. Hall has served as Chief Executive Officer of Centurion. I know I'm butchering that. She can correct me right after this. Military Alliance, CMA. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, community-based transition assistant program designed to train and prepare and educate our nation's transitioning military veterans, family members, and caregivers. She's also the president of Victory Trades Alliance and discusses the viability and critical importance of high demand jobs within the trades. I have found this on a personal level with her that if you follow her on any social media platform, she's usually rocking out to NF. So Chaunte, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
Hey, I mean, weed out the gray area of who is NF. Like, who is NF? I mean, I know him. He's like a Christian rapper for potential, like comparable to Eminem. But I mean, who is NF for you and all that good stuff? Who's NF?
Why do I rock out and work out to NF?
Yeah,
huh? That's
exactly.
what everyone is wondering.
Yeah.
I think it's just because, like you said, he's comparable. We would say, to Eminem. We'll get some backlash for that, but it's just that motivation. I think to continuously, no matter what we go through in life, we're striving forward. We're putting one step in front of the other. One foot in front of the other, making sure that we take those steps. And so, with each movement, when it comes to physical fitness, and knowing that I have control over the strength of my body, that keeps me moving forward. And some would never understand that, but the things that I think it's almost maybe that military side of me where I want something to control, and I can control what I put into my body. I can control the amount of exercise. I can control the fact that I'm continuously making sure I'm educating myself. And so I appreciate his honest tactics in his songs.
Yeah. He's pretty badass with his lyricism too, right? That's how he can formulate words and narratives. That's amazing. So, well, go ahead and fill the gaps towards the introduction. Please correct me if I was wrong in pronouncing your company. Fill those gaps for us.
Yeah, so Centurion Military Alliance. So it's a Centurion.
Yes.
And so when you think about that age old, the Centurion helmet, that is exactly what our logo is the helmet. But when you look at the warrior ethos, that was kind of why our company name was that Centurion Military Alliance, to not negate the warrior ethos, the military code that we stand and we abide by.
Yeah, no, that's pretty awesome. Wasn't that like Roman history? Isn't that the
Yeah.
Romans? That's pretty
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, putting on the armor. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to go ahead and dive into your journey of getting out of the Air Force, because you got out back in 2008, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
How was those first few years for you, as far regarding like key milestones, learned lessons, just you becoming you today? How's that journey like?
Yeah. So, I think with any journey in life, and something that I learned very early on, Chris, was that we have to be adaptable and resilient. We have to be able to roll with the punches. And the old saying of uncertainty, the one thing about uncertainty is that it's certain. And so even going back then of how I was raised, and being raised in Japan and moving and being raised in a military family, when I went to transition, I made the decision due to the culture that I was raised in. And so I grew up in a very close knit family, even though we were all military, just very, very close. And the military culture pre-September 11th, I would say, was very close. And something happened once the deployment started. And now that we've been a nation at war for 19 years, we got away from the family unity, I think, when it came to that military culture. And again, it was back-to-back deployment. And then when you were home, you were home. And so though we strive to still embody those same principles, somewhere along the line, it got to, okay, well, what's best for me personally when I get back from a deployment? What do I need to do instead of that us, that we mentality?
Yeah.
And so I would say, I made the decision to get out because at the time I was single. I wanted a family. There were things that I wanted to accomplish in my life. And when I had signed my paperwork in 99 with my recruiter, who was also my father, I definitely signed with the intent to finish my education. And so my bachelor's degree was very important to me. I, as an Air Force service member, thought I would have that finished in 4 years, and that did not happen. So I got out to really pursue what I believed at the time were my dreams. The entire time I was in the Air Force, I actually had become a personal trainer. So, which I thought I was extremely passionate about. I was going to open my gym. Everything was going to work out. And what I realized along the way, Chris, was that the passion sense, or who you think you are when you're in the military, is not always who you are when you get out of the military. That physical fitness part was one aspect of me. And it was one aspect that the military supported, right? We want to be physically fit.
Right.
But there were all those other facets of me as well, as a leader, one who strongly believes in servant leadership, as a mentor. You're mentoring whether you think you are or not. You're guiding. And I think that all those hats that we wear when we get into the military, we get out and we think, well, I'm just going to be this way. And what I found is, to ensure that I didn't pigeonhole myself, I talked to my family. Thankfully, I had the mentoring components there, where my father said, you're not getting a bachelor's in kinesiology. You already have personal training certifications and licensures. Get a bachelor's in business. Then the GI Bill came out and said they'd further support education. Chaunte, no, you're not getting a master's in Christian studies. Yes, we love Jesus, but let's look at something tangible. And so I really listened to my family's advice, to my parents, specifically my father, and everything that he had accomplished in academia. And I began to kind of put these puzzle pieces, if you will, together, Chris. And I realized that because of taking his advice and having a bachelor's in business, I understood the business world. I was able to successfully sell a gym when I realized waking up at 4 a.m. and closing the doors at 10 o'clock at night by myself was not my dream.
Yeah.
And you just attested to, I'm still passionate about fitness, but there's more to it than that. And then the women, leadership principle kind of came into play. And well, as a woman leader, how am I now viewed as a personal trainer? Or then I became a director at the YMCA. How was I viewed as a strong, assertive woman? And how was I tailoring my verbiage to that of the civilian culture? How was I ensuring that I was meeting their needs? And I would tell you, Chris, that the key to what has made me who I am today, in which I'm continuously growing and learning, and I'm so thankful to God for that. But the biggest key I would say for me personally was that self-awareness. Every single day I woke up, okay, how can I do better? What can I achieve? What can I accomplish? What can I do to support another? And that's how the idea of Centurion Military Alliance came about.
Oh, that's great. I love that background. I love your journey, because I can definitely identify, which I'm sure a lot of ambitious vets that are listening to this can identify with, like, hey, if you're a PT stud, you just transition to becoming a personal trainer or, box gym, cookie cutter trainer or whatever it is. Right.
Yep.
And like you kind of learn along the way, and it seems like you learned a lot. But one gap that we spoke about before in our previous conversation is the self-awareness component, right? A lot of veterans don't know how to be proactive in the civilian sector. We like to kind of react to the civilian culture versus be proactive and be prepared and stuff like that. So it sounded like you started learning, okay, here's my gaps, right? I don't know how to properly lead this team as a director. How do I start learning new terminology to have them create results and stuff like that, right?
Right. Absolutely. Again, it's the ownership factor. And I'm very hard, if you will, on our military community. I am a firm believer that I raised my right hand to serve, defend, and protect. And so as I look to come into a culture that is stronger, it's the civilian culture is the dominant culture. Military, we're now as veterans, less than 10% of the population. So how are we going to successfully continue to not just advance and move forward from a career standpoint, but how do we treat one another? What does our everyday interaction look like? And I think that it's key that I had to take a step back. I had two choices. And I'll never forget, oh, look, she's such a cute little blonde. They had that little mentality, little personal trainer. And I thought, what? Excuse me? I've deployed multiple times, deployed with the Army, led to, we can throw in all those, the things that we say that we do while we're serving. And it's true, it's relevant. But I can sit back and kind of cry over how I'm viewed now, or have the pity party, wallow in myself. Or I can step up and say, you know what? It's okay that this is how I'm viewed. Now, what am I going to do to rise above those factors? How am I portraying myself? Why is it that they think that? What does my academia match my future career path desires? And I now go to this. You remember, Chris, when you joined the military and you were given a list of jobs that you could do. There's a list. Like,
based on my ASVAB score.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And even for those officers, listen in, I've heard it before. My sister-in-law, I can tease her. She was an Army nurse, and she said, well, I tried to get in the Air Force, but I couldn't because I couldn't. Right. And so it's one of those things where we joke back and forth, especially in my family. If you joined as an Army officer and not Air Force, not to pick on the other branches, but it's because you couldn't get into the Air Force.
That was true in my case. That's why I was a Marine. So
But all the services are needed, and we're thankful for each and every one of them. And the same servant principles still abide. And so you speak to, I looked at my ASVAB score. Okay, what career paths were optional? And it's based off of the needs. The interesting thing about the civilian sector, and it's like the biggest kept secret, it's the same thing. There are a list of applicable jobs. There are employment opportunities. There's a reason why colleges, universities, technical schools exist, striving to meet the needs on a global scale for employment. So what are those jobs going to be? And we hear it all the time. Well, I'm just going to go into business for myself, and I'm going to be my own boss. You're never your own boss. You are always answering to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, even when you're a business owner, you're answering to your clients, right? I
Yes.
mean, even being a podcaster, I got to answer to my guests, right? And their needs. So it definitely relates. So I want to kind of pivot into your philosophy, which I think is brilliant, with just identifying positionality, like positioning where you're at. And I think once I started getting into more personal and professional development a few years out, once I got out of the Marine Corps, and I started studying like the Darren Hardys and, T. Harv Eckards and stuff like that, I started realizing that, hey, I do have to step back, to your point, right, Chaunte, where I had to kind of figure out where my skill gaps were, where my human capital gaps were, and okay, what's a course, what's a book, stuff like that I need to start reading to kind of become more effective or efficient in that area. So you have been one of the, I've interviewed now over 100 top minds inside our community to date, and you are one of the best that I've seen position this all up to how do we develop self-awareness, proactiveness, resourcefulness in 3 key areas, and I'm excited to dive into them. So let's start with education. What is that? Why is that important?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of tie in all 3 pillars, if you don't mind. So
rock and roll.
This is, when you look at this, Chris, and why this is so impactful for me on a personal level, and then now on a professional level, was my father actually finished his PhD, and his dissertation was based off of the mentoring and stewarding components within the military construct. And when we look at the culture, that we are always mentoring and stewarding, whether we believe we are or not, we are. And so now what do we do with that? And then why do people typically join the military? And the number one answer is typically for education. So then we break down education a little further. What keeps individuals from not accomplishing their educational goals? What is it that stops them? And so is it financial reasons? Is it due to speaking or trying to have that career progression or articulating, so today we've got more hands-on training, or you're taking care of your troops, you're in a leadership position, you don't have time for another class. So when we're talking about educational attainment, we're 100% talking about vocational proficiency. And that is because if you're pursuing higher academia, a certification, a licensure, I do a lot for Victory Trades Alliance, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. If we're talking about, these certifications, licensures, and degree paths, why are you pursuing it? Well, typically one is pursuing that path so that they can become vocationally proficient, so that they can have employment. Why? So that they can be financially stable, which lends to financial literacy. So you can't talk about education without talking about financial or vocational. It doesn't make any sense. And so oftentimes what we see is, oh, I'm a financial, guru. Come take my class, follow Dave Ramsey. Everyone knows that it works. And these are great principles. But if you're talking about money, you are absolutely talking about employment. Or else how are you going to get the money? So it's cyclical. And so we look at those 3 pillars, and that's where I ask our veterans, our transitioning service members, our military spouses, our caregivers. Now, due to COVID and this pandemic, I'm asking these same questions, Chris, to those pursuing college educational goals, to those pursuing the certifications. Now it's getting up further upstream to high school. And I love this concept. And most recently now, I trained Whole Foods staff with their talent acquisition team.
Nice.
And I was able to train 100 United Airline pilots that have recently been, kind of furloughed. So I share all that because it's critical that as we look at facing that next step, that next day, that challenge, maybe that uncertainty, I need every single person that's listening today to be able to articulate their positionality. Who are you? So you shared, Chris, I come before you today. I have an MPA with an emphasis in government and policy. I'm a human resource professional. I'm an executive career coach. I'm finishing a doctorate. I don't get to introduce myself as a doctor today. And so what does that mean? If I go on LinkedIn or Indeed or the Bureau of Labor Statistics and I try to look for a job, does that speak to a job description? The company wants to know, what can you do for us starting today, Chaunte? We don't care that you're a doctor in a couple months. We're still not hiring you as a full-time professor until you get that doctorate. And so as I looked at my own level of academia and how it tied into those job descriptions, I'm now looking at, will that job allow me to be financially stable as a single mother with 2 children, which lends to financial literacy? And so those pillars are constantly moving, shifting, changing. Something's going on. And this is where, again, I tell individuals, we have to be so self-aware that when those things happen, we can kind of shift, change, and look to kind of maneuver amongst another pillar. So maybe we're stronger in one than the other, but how are we going to use that to position ourselves to have that foundation of holistic health, well-being, and resiliency?
Yeah, I love it. I love how it's like a whole veteran too. It's not just like resume writing and interview prep, right?
No.
It's like the whole veteran, the well-being of a veteran, mil spouse, or ambitious vet. You may be an ambitious active duty member, right?
Absolutely.
That you just may be wanting to find those gaps and stuff like that. So what I'm hearing and what you're saying, Chaunte, is that these pillars are kind of like goals that are ever evolving, that are kind of carrots that we're chasing a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like, hey, I have a goal in employment. I have this prestige of that I'm chasing after. And then from there, it's financial literacy. Okay, how much money do I want to make?
Yeah.
What do I need to build around me as far as credentials, degrees, whatever, so I can actually make that money? And then what is the other education components? Now, I would ask you this question and go right back to you, is that once someone is making the money that they want, say they got that doctorate degree, and ambitious vet's like, hey, yeah, Chaunte, I got that doctorate degree. I'm making over 6 figures, and I'm feeling proficient in my work. However, I'm spending more than what I'm bringing in. So is that when we start pushing back the financial literacy and like, okay, what's my gap, and finding your positionality in that? Or how would you explain that?
So this is where we daily need to be aware of our positionality. One, so yes, I have my goal of trying to finish this doctorate, but I need to be aware today. I need to be able to sell myself right now. And I think this is sometimes where the trappings lie, or the failings of a service member that isn't used to talking about himself or herself because they're getting out. Everyone knew who they were before. You see the badges, you see the rank, you see, and it's that last name. We see what your job was in the military. And so how do you get out, and how are you able to craft that narrative, that elevator pitch? Positionality, again, this is daily. So when I look at, I try to always explain it in real terms of looking at, something happened. So we'll take the pandemic. So many people were rocked, Chris, so many. So let's say you had that 6 months of savings that the financial planners told you to have. Well, we're now at that 6-month mark. So if you were one of the ones that were furloughed back in March, what now? What is that what now? And this is why one has to be so self-aware and understanding their position so that they can immediately, you know, I know for me personally, I started going through some stuff. Okay, I'm going to pull up my LinkedIn account. I'm going to self-assess. I'm going to see where I am. I'm going to start reaching out to some employers. Have you built these intangible relationships, real relationships? Like the power, it's the bad words always. You start talking about networking or money, and people are like, oh no, you know, that's worse. That's worse than an R-rated movie, right? Which I think PG-13 is probably worse now. But anyways, so, but we look at these words that are considered these bad, dirty words, and we need to be able to talk about it. We need to be able to say, you know what, I was doing things right, but I didn't expect X, Y, and Z. This is who I am. This is how I can walk in and sell myself. This is what I bring to the table. Okay, you know what? I've got that doctorate. I'm now a full-time professor. I'm not bringing in what I need. I am spending more because that happens time and time again, especially I'll say from that woman's standpoint of I'm looking at it going, my goodness, whether it's the hair, it's the makeup, it's the cost, it's the clothes, it's the, you know, we can go on and on with all these extra expenditures that look the part, feel the part, dress better, you know, dress for the job you want, not the job you have, you know, all these sayings. So financially, we have to be prepared to how can we offset? And this is why I look at Victory Trades Alliance, and I love speaking about mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, because there was a time where, and I don't know when this happened or why this happened, but it's the blue collar worker. And we're snubbing our nose at these opportunities. And right now, if you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you know who's making six figures?
They're killing it.
They're killing it.
They're
And they're essential personnel. So as I sit in my air-conditioned home with working plumbing, electrical, and everything that I need to be able to operate my business from my house, how do I snub my nose at someone's employment? I just, when did we become a people? So I would say that, again, understanding your positionality, I went from, I do have that master's degree, Chris. I am an HR professional, but want, how many other people are? So yeah, how am I going to get gainful employment? And I laughed and thought, wow, when I became a single mother and I didn't expect it, if I was a mechanic, I could walk right out and get a job right now and start killing it. So are we open to opportunities? Are we open? And especially I would say to the ambitious vet, we raised our right hand to serve, defend, and protect. I'm asking you to raise your right hand to serve, defend, and protect, again, your local communities. What are the employment opportunities that are there right now? That's the need. And we're either going to answer that as Americans or we're not. And I think that we're at that crossroads, Chris, where we have a lot of people that need to kind of self-evaluate and say, I never thought about that opportunity before. It's not really my dream job, but you know what? Go volunteer then. You know, like step up to the plate, take that position, support your family, support the community, support America, and volunteer. Do something else with your time, or go golf. You know, like do something.
I know a guy that's met a business partner through golfing, right? You'd be surprised if you just put yourself out there who you'll find. And, just inertia will take its way. You push the rock, it continues to push forward. But if you're in static, consuming Netflix, stuff like that, no opportunity is going to find someone like that. So what I'm hearing in this is that it's like a framework, a roadmap to go off of. Okay, I'm being stopped right now. Okay, where am I? Why am I being stopped? Okay, education, right? I need to go hit this credential, right? I actually probably need to go back to school, go leverage the voc rehab program or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
Disability to go and, finish up that master's degree so I can hit this credential and stuff like that. Because to your point, the talent pool and even finding a job is the most competitive it's ever been during this time, right? I mean, millions are unemployed. I mean, I just left San Diego, California, and they said 25% of Californians are unemployed right now, which is crazy. California's a big state. So just put that in perspective for the rest of the United States. So is there anything else you want to kind of just put a lid on these three pillars for an ambitious vet to be like, yeah, this is what I need? Is there any lid capper you'd put to that?
I would just say that there's a reason why the foundation of those three pillars is holistic health, well-being, and resiliency. It absolutely is the whole person concept. And I believe that, again, as veterans, I'm proud of my service. How do we step up to the plate and meet these societal and global needs? We know we've been a nation at war for as long as we have. We know there are other health factors that come into play. But if we're constantly self-evaluating and waking up and moving forward, we're going to see that positive traction. And I think that's the whole intent behind the Centurion Military Alliance curriculum.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And where can, an employee or an employer find more access to that curriculum? Because I know that you are currently either have already licensed it or are currently licensing it. So where can people go and find that?
Yes, absolutely. So please go to cmawarrior.org, and we host right now. All workshops are via Zoom. So it's very easy. And then during the workshops, you are given an assessment to be able to look at one's positionality.
Wow, that's awesome. Ambitious Vet, get on that, get unstuck, and start start figuring out where your positionality is. Figure out where you're being stopped, why you're being stopped, and start figuring out those gaps. So you can get out there and start killing it out of the uniform. Because this is where we rise. This is when veterans go out there and we build our economical value, and most people are putting life on hold. We don't put life on hold. We're ambitious vets. So we're going to take a quick 10-second break to thank our sponsor. Right when we get back, we're going to be diving into Chaunte Hall's 3 golden grenades to keep you unstuck and living a fulfilling life. We'll be right back. Do you have a great story, ambitious vet? If so, why not wear something that has one too? At Original Grain, they create handcrafted watches which feature sustainable, reclaimed, and repurposed materials that tell a story. It's more than a watch. It's a conversion piece. Each timepiece is one of a kind, just like you. Find your perfect match now by visiting originalgrain.com. If you find anything you like there, ambitious vet, make sure once you're checking out to enter in code AMV Network 10. Again, that's AMV Network 10 to get your 10% military discount. All right, ambitious vet, we're right back inside the trenches with Chaunte Hall. She's been killing it since the very beginning of this interview. She's been diving into the 3 key pillars to make sure that you're staying resourceful, staying self-aware, and staying on top of what your deepest goals are, your deepest desires are in life. So Chaunte, this is traditional on this show. What would be 3 golden grenades that you could drop in right now? You could sum up the show or bring 3 brand new ones that could help an ambitious vet continue to accelerate or advance in their life.
Absolutely, Chris. So I would say, to sum up the show and just add a little bit, self-awareness is key. Drop the mic right there. We have to be so self-aware that nothing is able to rattle us. So in the military, we're self-aware. We know who we are. Our uniform says it. Our positions say it. So we have to be self-aware in the civilian sector amongst educational attainment, financial literacy, and vocational proficiency. We have to know where we lie. And so we're constantly striving to keep balance and order to our lives around us. This, I firmly believe, is the answer to when you look at recruitment, retention, and reintegration. How are we going to recruit the next generation of military service members if we are not showing the success that we have had from serving this great nation? If we don't continue to move forward, how do those that are in decide to even stay in? If we're not sharing, hey, these are some of the struggles, this is the truth factor. I think that's another thing, is being honest about where you are and making sure that there are those around you that know who you are, and so that you're not doing life alone. And I think that would be, I know that was kind of a lot, but that would be the big number 2. It's self-awareness. Number 2 is we don't do life alone. Not one of us have gotten to where we have gotten by ourselves. And I don't care what story you give me, there is always someone that is right there, or there's always someone that's watching you. And so you're relevant, you're needed. And third, for right now, when I'm thinking about grenades and I'm thinking about this pandemic, is we have the opportunity, ambitious vets out there, we have the opportunity right now to rise more than ever before, because we are adaptable, we are resilient, we step up to the plate, and we are prepared to answer our nation's call. And right now, due to this pandemic, our nation is calling. These companies, these organizations, or if you're a business owner and you're looking at what does my local community need, step up to the plate. So with that, Chris, thanks.
You killed it. Step up to the plate, ambitious vet. Well, before we let you go, where can people find out more information about you? How can they connect with you? And after that, we'll send you off.
Absolutely. So please, Chaunte Hall on LinkedIn. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. And don't just connect, but connect and engage. Build intentional relationships. And then cmawarrior.org. And if you're interested in the trades, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, victorytradesalliance.com.
Awesome, Chaunte. Well, thank you for being an ambitious vet. Thank you for showing us how we can follow your footsteps. Take care.
Thank you, Chris.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Again, today's show is brought to you by Brute Force. They focus on the gear, the training, and the lifestyle you need to train accordingly. Click the link in the show notes below to explore everything they have to offer.